After you do this, they will chase you. SP success story. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the person you've been thinking about non-stop is suddenly thinking about you just as intensely. Imagine your phone lighting up with the very message you've been waiting for. Not because you begged for it, not because you convinced someone to love you, but because something inside you changed first. What if I told you that the greatest shift in any specific person's success story doesn't begin with them? It begins with you. For so long, many people believe that love is something to chase. They believe they must constantly text first, prove their worth, overthink every conversation, analyze every social media post, and wonder why the connection feels so difficult. The harder they chase, the further the other person seems to run. They become trapped in a cycle of waiting, worrying, doubting, and hoping. They convince themselves that one more message, one more explanation, or one more attempt will finally make the other person choose them. Yet the opposite often happens. The pursuit creates pressure, and pressure pushes love away. But what if the secret isn't doing more? What if the secret is becoming more? Today, we're diving into one of the most inspiring SP success stories you'll ever hear, not because it's about luck, coincidence, or manipulation, but because it's about transformation. It's about discovering that the moment you stop living from fear and start living from certainty, everything begins to shift. Mashmant, you stop asking, how do I make them love me? And start asking, who do I become when I already know I'm worthy of love? Your entire reality starts changing. This is not about controlling another person's thoughts or taking away anyone's freedom to make their own choices. It's about changing your own mindset, your emotional state, your self-concept, and the story you repeatedly tell yourself. When you transform the way you see yourself, you naturally transform the way you show up in the world. You become calmer instead of anxious, confident instead of desperate, peaceful instead of fearful. And people often respond differently to someone who carries themselves with genuine confidence and emotional security. Throughout this speech, you'll discover the powerful inner shifts that countless people describe as the turning point in their own journeys. You'll learn why chasing rarely creates lasting love, why confidence is more attractive than desperation, why your assumptions influence your behavior, and why the relationship you build with yourself lays the foundation for every relationship you have with others. So if you've been wondering whether your story can change, whether your relationship can evolve, or whether you can become someone who naturally inspires love, respect, and commitment, stay with me until the very end. Because the transformation you're looking for doesn't begin when they send the next text. It begins the moment you decide that your happiness, your confidence, and your worth are no longer dependent on someone else's actions. When that inner transformation becomes real, everything else has the opportunity to change. And this may be the moment your own success story truly begins. Stop chasing. Become the version they naturally pursue. There comes a moment in every true specific person's success story when everything changes. And surprisingly, it isn't the moment the text message arrives, the phone rings, or the relationship is restored. The real turning point happens much earlier. It happens in the quiet decision to stop chasing. For so long, many people believe that love must be earned through constant effort. They think they have to prove their worth, send another message, explain themselves one more time, monitor every social media update, or search endlessly for signs that the other person still cares. They wake up wondering what their SP is doing and fall asleep replaying conversations in their mind. Their happiness rises and falls depending on whether a notification appears on their phone. In that state, their emotional well-being is no longer in their own hands. It has been handed over to someone else. But the greatest shift begins when they decide to take it back. Instead of asking, how can I get them to choose me? They begin asking, how can I become someone who chooses themselves every single day? That single question changes everything. When you begin investing your time in your own growth, your confidence, your purpose, your peace of mind, and your emotional resilience, something remarkable happens. You no longer approach life from a place of lack. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting to be completed by another person. Instead, you become someone who is already complete. That doesn't mean you stop caring about your SP or pretend your feelings don't exist. It simply means your identity is no longer built around whether another person gives you attention. Your joy is no longer dependent on someone else's decisions. You discover that real confidence isn't loud and it isn't forced. It's the quiet certainty that you are valuable regardless of anyone else's opinion. This inner security changes the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you respond to challenges, and the energy you bring into every interaction. Rather than reacting with fear, every time there is silence, you remain calm. Rather than assuming rejection, you trust your own worth. Rather than trying to force conversations, you allow space for genuine connection to develop naturally. Ironically, this shift often makes relationships healthier because the pressure disappears. Instead of trying to convince someone to love you, you simply express who you are with authenticity. People generally respond more positively to someone who is emotionally grounded than to someone who is consumed by anxiety and constant reassurance seeking. This is why so many people describe a dramatic change after focusing on themselves. They started exercising, learning new skills, reconnecting with friends, pursuing meaningful goals, developing gratitude, improving their mindset, and building a fulfilling life that didn't revolve around one person. They became happier, more relaxed, and more self-assured. Whether or not an SP returned immediately, they discovered something even more valuable. They had become the kind of person who no longer abandoned themselves in pursuit of someone else. And that transformation affected every area of their lives. Opportunities seemed easier to recognize, friendships grew stronger, and relationships became healthier because they were no longer driven by fear of loss. The greatest lesson is this: when you stop chasing, you stop communicating, even to yourself, that something essential is missing. You begin living as someone who is already worthy of love, respect, and commitment. From that place, your actions become intentional instead of desperate. Your words become genuine instead of fearful, and your presence becomes naturally compelling. The goal is never to manipulate another person's feelings or guarantee a particular outcome. The true victory is becoming someone whose confidence, self-respect, and emotional balance no longer depend on external validation. And when that inner transformation takes place, you don't just change your chances of building healthier relationships, you change your entire experience of life. That is where every meaningful success story truly begins. Rewrite the story you keep repeating. Every person lives by a story. Long before words are spoken out loud, there is an invisible conversation taking place within the mind. It is the quiet narrative that repeats itself day after day. I'm not enough. They've lost interest. Love never works out for me. I'm always the one who gets left behind. These thoughts may seem harmless because no one else can hear them, yet they shape how you interpret every message, every silence, every glance, and every interaction. If you constantly expect disappointment, you begin to notice only the evidence that supports that expectation. A delayed reply feels like rejection. A busy schedule feels like abandonment. A misunderstanding feels like the end of the relationship. Before long, you are no longer responding to reality. You are responding to the story you've been telling yourself. The most powerful turning point in many SP success stories begins when people realize that the greatest conversation they need to change is not the one with their specific person, but the one they have with themselves. Think about how much time people spend rehearsing worst-case scenarios. They imagine arguments that have never happened. They replay painful memories until those moments feel more real than the present. They predict failure before giving love a chance to grow. Without realizing it, they become emotionally attached to a version of the future built entirely on fear. But what happens when that inner script changes? What happens when you replace the thought, "they don't care about me," with "I am worthy of love, respect, and genuine connection"? What happens when you stop identifying yourself as the person who is always overlooked and begin identifying yourself as someone who naturally attracts healthy relationships? The change may seem subtle at first, but over time it transforms your mindset, your emotions, and the way you carry yourself. Rewriting your story is not about pretending challenges don't exist or denying reality. It is about refusing to let past disappointments define your future. One painful relationship does not have to become the blueprint for every relationship that follows. One misunderstanding does not determine your value. One rejection does not erase your worth. The moment you stop using yesterday's experiences as proof of tomorrow's outcome, you create space for something entirely new. Instead of waking up expecting another day of disappointment, you begin expecting opportunities for growth, connection, and positive change. That expectation influences your attitude, your confidence, and your willingness to engage with life in healthier ways. Many people notice that once they begin changing their inner dialogue, they also change their outward behavior. They stop sending messages driven by panic. They stop overanalyzing every word their SP says. They stop searching for hidden meanings in every interaction. Instead, they communicate with greater confidence, patience, and emotional stability. Conversations become more relaxed because they are no longer trying to force reassurance from another person. They begin listening instead of assuming. They respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. This emotional maturity often creates stronger and more authentic relationships because it replaces fear with trust and insecurity with self-respect. Your inner story also shapes how you see yourself when no one else is around. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are unlovable, your confidence slowly fades and you begin making decisions from a place of self-doubt. But when you consistently remind yourself that your value is inherent, that you deserve kindness, honesty, and mutual respect, you begin making choices that reflect that belief. You establish healthier boundaries. You invest in your personal growth. You pursue goals that fulfill you beyond any relationship. Instead of waiting for someone else to make you feel complete, you build a life that already feels meaningful. Ironically, people are often drawn to those who possess that quiet confidence because it reflects genuine emotional security rather than a constant need for validation. This is the heart of so many inspiring SP success stories. The breakthrough was never just about another person changing. It began when the individual stopped repeating a story of fear and started living from a story of confidence, hope, and self-worth. The words you whisper to yourself every day become the foundation of the life you build. Change the story, strengthen your self-concept, and you change the way you experience every relationship. When your inner narrative becomes one of confidence instead of lack, you no longer chase love from a place of fear. You welcome it from a place of wholeness. That is where lasting transformation truly begins. Detachment is not giving up. It's trusting the outcome. One of the most misunderstood ideas in any specific person journey is the meaning of detachment. The moment people hear the word, they often assume it means forgetting the person, pretending they never mattered, or forcing themselves to stop caring. But true detachment is none of those things. It is not emotional coldness, and it is certainly not giving up on what you desire. Real detachment is the decision to release fear while holding on to hope. It is choosing peace over panic. It is trusting that your happiness does not have to wait until another person behaves exactly as you want them to. Many people delay their joy by believing they can only feel complete after receiving a text message, hearing an apology, or seeing their SP return. As a result, every day becomes an emotional roller coaster. If the phone stays silent, they feel defeated. If a message arrives, they feel hopeful for a moment. Their emotional state constantly rises and falls based on circumstances outside their control. This creates exhaustion because their peace is no longer coming from within. It depends entirely on external events. The greatest breakthrough happens when they finally decide that their emotional stability is too valuable to be controlled by uncertainty. Trusting the outcome means believing that your life can continue to be meaningful even while some questions remain unanswered. It means waking up each morning determined to grow, to laugh, to pursue your goals, and to appreciate the present instead of placing your entire future on hold. Rather than spending hours checking social media, rereading old conversations, or searching for hidden signs, you begin investing that energy into building a life that excites you. You develop new skills, strengthen your relationships with family and friends, improve your health, and reconnect with dreams that may have been forgotten. Gradually, you realize that you are becoming happier, not because your circumstances changed overnight, but because you changed the way you responded to them. This inner freedom is one of the greatest gifts you can ever give yourself. Ironically, when people stop trying to force every outcome, they often become far more attractive in their interactions. They communicate with confidence instead of urgency. They listen instead of desperately seeking reassurance. They allow conversations to unfold naturally instead of trying to control every response. Emotional pressure fades, making room for genuine connection. Whether the relationship develops further or not, they are no longer acting from fear. They have discovered that confidence grows when you stop trying to control everything you cannot control and instead focus on the person you are becoming. That shift transforms not only romantic relationships but also friendships, careers, and every area of life where patience and resilience matter. Detachment also teaches an important lesson about self-worth. When you constantly chase certainty from another person, you unintentionally communicate to yourself that your value depends on their approval. But when you trust that you are worthy, regardless of someone else's timing or choices, you reclaim your confidence. You stop interpreting every delay as rejection and every silence as proof that something is wrong with you. Instead, you recognize that relationships involve two unique individuals, each with their own experiences, emotions, and decisions. Healthy love grows through mutual respect, honest communication, and shared commitment, not through fear-driven pursuit. This perspective allows you to approach relationships with maturity rather than anxiety. Many inspiring SP success stories share a common theme. The greatest transformation occurred when people finally stopped living in constant anticipation and started fully living their own lives. They discovered new passions, embraced personal growth, strengthened their confidence, and found joy independent of any single outcome. Then, whether their SP reappeared or new opportunities entered their lives, they were ready to build healthier connections because they were no longer operating from emotional desperation. Their peace had become rooted within themselves rather than in another person's actions. The true power of detachment is not that it guarantees someone will chase you. No mindset can promise another person's decisions. Its real power is that it frees you from fear, restores your emotional balance, and helps you become the strongest version of yourself. When you trust the journey instead of constantly trying to control it, you move through life with quiet confidence. And that confidence has the ability to transform not only your relationships, but also the way you experience every single day. That is the foundation of every lasting success story. Live from the end, before you see the results. One of the most powerful shifts in any specific person's success story begins the moment you stop waiting for external proof before allowing yourself to feel secure, confident, and loved. Most people unknowingly live in reverse. They tell themselves, I'll be happy when they text me. I'll feel confident when they ask me out. I'll finally relax when they commit to me. In other words, they place their emotional state at the mercy of future events. They believe the outside world must change first before they are allowed to change on the inside. But lasting transformation often begins in the opposite direction. Instead of waiting for circumstances to create confidence, you begin cultivating confidence before circumstances change. Instead of waiting to feel worthy, you recognize that your worth has never depended on another person's response. This shift doesn't require pretending that everything is perfect or denying your genuine emotions. It simply means choosing to live each day with the mindset, habits, and self-respect of someone who already believes they deserve healthy, mutual love. Imagine two people who both desire the same relationship. The first spends every day worrying about being abandoned, checking their phone every few minutes, overthinking every interaction, and assuming the worst whenever communication slows down. The second also hopes for the relationship to grow, but they continue building a meaningful life, taking care of themselves, pursuing their goals, enjoying friendships, and speaking to themselves with kindness and confidence. Which person is more likely to experience emotional peace? Which one is more likely to communicate calmly, set healthy boundaries, and respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively? The difference is not simply luck, it is the result of living from two completely different inner states. One lives from fear, while the other lives from confidence. Living from the end means asking yourself a simple question every morning. If I already believed I was deeply valued and worthy of love, how would I show up today? You might notice that you would smile more often, worry less, take better care of your health, pursue opportunities without hesitation, and stop seeking constant reassurance. You would probably speak with greater confidence, treat yourself with more respect, and allow relationships to develop naturally instead of trying to force certainty. These are not imaginary changes. They are practical behaviors that improve your quality of life, regardless of any particular relationship outcome. They help you become emotionally resilient and grounded, qualities that strengthen every connection you build. This mindset also frees you from the exhausting habit of measuring your progress by daily external signs. Instead of asking, "Did they text today?" you begin asking, "Did I honor my own peace today?" Instead of wondering, "Do they see my value?" you begin asking, "Am I recognizing my own value?" Those questions shift your focus from trying to control another person's behavior to strengthening the one thing that has always been within your influence: your own character, perspective, and choices. As your inner confidence grows, your conversations become more authentic because they are no longer driven by fear of losing someone. You listen more carefully, express yourself more honestly, and stop trying to earn affection through overexertion. Healthy relationships flourish when both people feel free to be themselves rather than pressured to meet impossible expectations. Many people who share inspiring SP success stories described this stage as the moment everything felt different, not because their specific person instantly changed overnight, but because they themselves had changed. They no longer woke up feeling anxious about every unanswered message. They no longer allowed temporary silence to define their self-worth. They stopped postponing happiness until a future event occurred and began appreciating the present moment. That emotional shift often influenced every part of their lives. Their careers improved because they became more confident. Their friendships deepened because they were more present. Their overall well-being increased because they were no longer carrying the constant weight of uncertainty. The deepest lesson is this: live today as the person you aspire to become tomorrow. Walk with confidence before the applause arrives. Speak with self-respect before anyone offers validation. Build a joyful, meaningful life before every dream has fully unfolded. When you do that, you stop chasing a future version of yourself and begin embodying it now. Whether your specific person returns, a relationship grows, or life leads you toward an expected opportunity, you will meet that moment not as someone seeking completion, but as someone who has already discovered it within. That quiet inner transformation is what makes every true success story so powerful, because it begins long before the world can see it. The success story begins with you, not them. As we reach the final and perhaps most important lesson, it becomes clear that every meaningful specific person success story shares one powerful truth. The greatest miracle was never the text message, the unexpected phone call, the apology, or the reunion. Those moments may be memorable, but they are not the true victory. The real success happened much earlier, in the unseen transformation that took place within the individual. Before anything changed on the outside, something extraordinary changed on the inside. They stopped measuring their value by another person's attention. They stopped allowing fear to dictate their decisions. They stopped believing that happiness existed somewhere in the future, waiting for someone else to unlock it. Instead, they discovered that the life they were searching for had to begin within themselves. That realization became the foundation upon which every healthy relationship, every meaningful opportunity, and every lasting success could be built. For many people, The journey begins with a single desire: I want my specific person back. There is nothing wrong with hoping for reconciliation or wanting to rebuild a meaningful relationship. Hope is a beautiful thing. But as the journey unfolds, something unexpected often happens. They begin reading, learning, reflecting, and growing. They develop greater emotional awareness. They strengthen their confidence. They forgive themselves for past mistakes. They release old beliefs that told them they were not enough. They learn to appreciate their own company instead of fearing loneliness. Slowly, they become someone entirely different, not because they were trying to impress another person, but because they finally realized they deserved the same kindness and love they had been so eager to give away. This inner transformation changes everything. Instead of waking up each morning wondering whether someone else will choose them, they wake up asking how they can become the best version of themselves today. They focus on their health, their goals, their relationships with family and friends, their purpose and their peace of mind. They celebrate small victories. They develop resilience during setbacks. They stop comparing their journey with everyone else's timeline. Most importantly, they stop abandoning themselves in the pursuit of someone else's approval. That shift creates a quiet confidence that cannot be manufactured or faked. It is the confidence of someone who knows their worth without needing constant reminders from the outside world. Ironically, this is often the point where relationships begin to change. People naturally respond to authenticity, emotional stability, and genuine self-respect. When you are no longer acting from fear or desperation, your conversations become lighter, your decisions become wiser. You communicate your feelings honestly without trying to control another person's response. You respect both yourself and the other person's ability to make their own choices. This creates the possibility for healthier and more balanced relationships because they are built on mutual respect rather than emotional dependence. While no one can guarantee another person's actions or promise a specific outcome, becoming emotionally secure and self-aware puts you in a far stronger position to build fulfilling relationships of every kind. Perhaps the most inspiring part of every success story is that it rarely ends where it began. Someone who originally set out to change a relationship often discovers that the greatest gift was changing themselves. They become more compassionate, more patient, more confident, and more resilient. They stop fearing rejection because they know one person's decision cannot erase their value. They stop seeking perfection because they understand that growth matters more than flawless performance. They become the kind of person who can love deeply without losing themselves in the process. That is a victory far greater than receiving a message or hearing the words, I miss you. So if there is one lesson to carry with you after today, let it be this. Never make another person the center of a life that was meant to be guided by your own purpose, character, and growth. Let your confidence come from the promises you keep to yourself. Let your peace come from knowing that your worth has never depended on someone else's approval. Let your joy come from becoming someone you are genuinely proud to be. When you build that kind of life, every relationship becomes healthier because it is no longer rooted in fear but in freedom. Whether your specific person returns, whether a new chapter begins, or whether life surprises you with opportunities you never imagined, you will be ready, not because someone else completed you, but because you discovered that you were whole all along. And that, above all else, is the true success story. It is the story that begins with you, grows through you, and inspires everyone whose life you touch.